Hey, everybody. Good Monday. Happy Monday. Good week. Hope you're having a great one so far. Hope you had a great weekend. And it is Monday, so that means I'm going to give you some more tips. This is actually part two. So if you missed part one, you can still catch that replay. Part two of how to avoid overwhelm in business, whether you're an entrepreneur, small business owner, maybe you work for somebody else. So I'm Cindy Baker. I'm an ADHD productivity coach, and I'm excited to be here with you to share these tips. So if you're jumping on live, if you could say hi in the chat, let me know where you're tuning in from. That would be awesome. And if you're watching the replay, let me know that as well. So we're going to go ahead and dive right in. So again, if you're jumping on live or watching the replay, let me know in the chat if you're watching in the Facebook group or if you're watching on another platform. Let me know where you're tuning in from. And again, we're talking about how to avoid that feeling of overwhelm when you're running a business or any profession, really. So sorry, I have this biggest itch right here. Sorry about that. Some of these tips are mine. Some I've gotten in various places. Several of these I got from an article I read by Karen Greenstreet. And last week we talked about probably about 15 or 20 different tips. So if you didn't catch that, go back and make sure you watch that. Now, something that I've always talked about and I teach in my coaching program is to divide big projects into bite-sized chunks, into little mini tasks. That's super important because if you're trying to avoid overwhelm and all you're dealing with are just big giant projects, you're not going to get very far because big things are overwhelming. So grab a piece of paper and write down all of the tasks that you can think of that go into that project. Like divide any task that takes more than 60 minutes into smaller doable chunks. And write all those down. Now, another tip, or maybe you could call it a rule, is to find it in 60 seconds or less. So create a rule for yourself that you're going to be able to get your hands on anything in your office in 60 seconds or less. So that means when you put something away, you're going to need to put it in the most intuitive place that you can think of, so that you'll think of where you left it. It doesn't have to make sense to anyone else. I guess unless you're sharing the same desk, but if it's your space, make sure you have things at your fingertips when you need it. Find a home for every single item in your office. And then every time you get it out and use it, return it to its home after each use. Do not leave it laying around on flat surfaces. Fall in love with your filing cabinet. Fall in love with drawers. Put things away. That's super important. Now, another tip is just 3 tasks a day. And I mentioned this, I think, last time. Stop overscheduling your time. And, you can always add more, but just choose 3 tasks, 3 of the most important things that you need to do each day to complete. And if you're done early, you can always add another task, right? Or you can get out of the office and get a little rest. But just start with 3 things, okay? Take your to-do list and then get a today list, that's what I call it, and put 3 things down. Now, another really helpful thing to do in avoiding overwhelm is just to admit that you're never going to get caught up. I know it's terrible. It feels terrible, right? But it's okay. Once you just admit that and you come to peace with it, then it's going to quit bugging you so much. Your to-do list will never be empty. You're always going to think of new things to add to it. You know, people are just, as soon as they complete a task, they create new projects and tasks to occupy their minds. That's just what we do as humans. And then we think of new things that are going to take up our time, our creativity, and our energy. I'm so sorry about this itch. Don't you hate that when you get something in your eye? It's driving me crazy. But we're hardwired this way. And so know that about yourself. Know that you're always going to have things. You're never going to go, okay, I'm done and I'm going to take 2 weeks off. You're not, it's not going to happen, so once you can kind of come to peace with that, then that overwhelm goes down a little bit. And I mentioned this last time, but it's worth saying again, stop multitasking. There's conflicting scientific research findings about whether multitasking causes productivity loss or not. But I'm telling you that trying to do too many things at one time is going to cause you to do a poorer job on everything that you touch, both in productivity and in your quality of work. Now, there is such a thing as switch tasking, where you're doing one thing and then you stop doing it and you start doing something else. And sometimes ADHD people, when we get bored, we need to do that. But I would say only do that when you're taking a break. Like let's say you're doing 20 minutes of really intense concentration kind of stuff on a computer. Then when that 20-minute timer goes off, you can get up and go over and switch the laundry from the washer into the dryer and turn the dryer on. Okay, it's a completely different part of your brain that it's a different task, but you're not multitasking. You're not doing it at the same time as you're writing a report. You're switching tasks, and then you're going to come back to the other one. That's different, but don't multitask. Okay. Now, out of sight, out of mind, when you need to focus deeply on a task, especially for a long amount of time, you need to clear off your desk first before you start. You don't need to have anything out that's going to pull your attention away from what you're trying to focus on. We get overstimulated visually by having, so many things within our view. So if you put them out of sight, and now this can just be temporary, right? You don't have to take an hour filing everything. Just take all the papers that you need to file, put it in a drawer where you can't see it, and then focus. But by putting them out of sight, you can focus more fully on the task in front of you. And I do this when I'm trying to do something, some kind of in-depth strategy work or content creation, or for myself or my clients. And it forces me to visually focus. And my mental focus is just on one thing. It's not going to be pulled in a million different directions. And sometimes when you need to focus, you need to get away from your desk. Like if you're working on a big project, maybe you're writing a big, long report, or maybe you're writing a book, maybe you need to take your laptop and leave the office. And maybe you need to go outside and sit by a lake or go to a coffee shop, in some kind of little quiet corner of a coffee shop, or maybe you go to a hotel lobby and you're right there. But, somehow moving from your office, even just to your living room, helps sometimes, because it's like, I don't know why it helps, but it's just it's a change of pace, because there's nothing else to grab your attention. So you can focus for long periods of time. And when I feel overwhelmed, then my ability to focus goes down. And when I step away from my desk and kind of take a deep breath and reset my focus, then I can begin again. So try that if you haven't already. And when you do make a list, whether it's a task list, a to-do list, task list, the small chunks I talked about, put a big check mark next to each task when you get it done. It really feels good. It will make you feel a sense of accomplishment, and it just feels good. So do that. Don't just leave it on there. Now, another great tip is to make an appointment with yourself. Having a to-do list is great, but the real payoff comes when you move your tasks from your to-do list and then you put them in your actual calendar as an appointment with yourself. Just like you would make an appointment with a doctor and you wouldn't miss that, you make an appointment with yourself. And that way you can estimate how much time something's going to take, and you know that you've blocked out enough time to get it done. And when you get done with a big project, don't automatically just move on to the next one. Take a minute and celebrate. Find some sort of wonderful way to celebrate your achievement. I think even small wins is important to celebrate. It keeps you motivated. Now put on your CEO hat. What are priority tasks for the ultimate success of your business? Sometimes what seems like the right thing to do in the moment is exactly the wrong thing to do for the future. So sometimes we are tempted to do the urgent and not do the important revenue producing activities that are going to pay off in the long run. So think like a CEO, whether you own the business or not. Now, I've mentioned this last time, but always get things out of your head and onto paper. Don't try to hold on to things in your head. If you're trying to carry around an entire project plan in your head, you are doomed to fail. If you're carrying around your shopping list and your weekend appointments in your head too, you're really doomed to fail. Stop doing that. Find a place to write down all of these thoughts and then use that consistently so you have a clear mind. I have everything in my planner, and even in the back, there are places for lists. And sometimes I'll use, like I have this, it's lined and it's a sticky note, and I can make a list and stick it in my planner. But dealing with overwhelm requires a clear mind. You cannot carry all that stuff in your brain. If you have ADHD like me, you have short-term memory issues anyway. So having it on paper, it gives you a sense of relief because you go, okay, now I don't have to carry that around in my head. If I can forget about it and move on, because I know it's where I can go find it later if I need it. Now, email. There's a whole training I have on email. But if you have too many email newsletters that you never ever read, then it's okay to unsubscribe. Do not unsubscribe to my email list. I'm just kidding. No, I hope that I provide enough value that you don't do that. And I try really hard to do that. But about every quarter, go through all the email newsletters that you've received from a certain person. Like do a search and then bring up all those. And if you don't find at least one brilliant idea or useful tip, or at least one deep insight, something like that, then you might want to consider unsubscribing. By knowing why you subscribe to email newsletters and then using those values to judge whether or not a newsletter is delivering value to you or not, you're going to be able to unsubscribe from those that don't meet your needs. Life is too short to wade through emails that don't even apply to you at all, So, now, again, with email, while you are during peak work hours, and this may take some discipline, but once you get in this habit, I want you to close down your email and social media sites during peak work periods. It's too distracting. It's too tempting. It's like if you love ice cream, it's like keeping ice cream in the house when you're on a diet. It's not going to work, so it's too tempting to respond to the ding or the notification that pops up. You need to take a break from that so that you can focus, and it'll still be there. People will be okay. The world will not cave in. You can take a couple of hours away from that. And now you need a good filing system. Freedom Filer is a good filing system for home and for office, but there are lots of others. But you may make up your own. But keep big projects in their own 3-ring binder or an electronic folder on your hard drive So all the material for that project is in one place. So for instance, I do the chaos to control challenge every once in a while, and you may have found me that way. And there's a lot of moving parts that go with that, and I put it all in a folder on my computer, and any file that has to do with that, any graphic, any copy, anything goes in that folder. Archive old financial papers, client files, and things like that into storage drawers or boxes. And, because one way of dealing with overwhelm is being tidy and knowing where to put your fingers on things that you need. Again, I do a bunch of several trainings on clutter, digital and physical clutter. So there's a lot more we can say about that. So embrace the PDF, get the paper off your desk using electronic PDFs or anything that's important. You can scan things that come into your office on paper to a PDF, and then you can print any online or electronic file to PDF using your operating system's PDF creation software. Again, there's so much we can say about that, but if you need more help with that, reach out and I'll give you more info. But try to not have so much paper. And when you're planning a project, you might want to have to create sort of a at a glance project planner. I'm usually juggling more than one project at once each month. So once a month, I get a mind map or a piece of paper, and I kind of map out the projects. You can do like different squares, and you can write down the 5 most important tasks that need to be done for that project in that month. And then you can kind of look at it all in one glance and see how all the puzzle pieces fit together and where the demands of your time are going to be felt the most, because it helps, because we're visual, right? Helps us to see the whole big picture. And when you're thinking about prioritizing and your time, you might have heard of the expression, the big rocks first. When if you don't know what I'm talking about, look up Stephen Covey. There's a video that gives you the big picture on that. And he's talking about putting rocks in a jar. And, if you don't know how to plan your priorities, then someone else is going to plan it for you. Make sure that you're planning to prioritize the most important things in your life first, and then everything else needs to fit around that. Now, another tip is to remember that perfectionism kills. Lots and lots of ADHD people that I work with struggle with perfectionism. And I know, because I've struggled with it myself. When I try to do everything perfectly, it nearly kills my business. Some tasks are critical for your success and they need to be as good as they can possibly be, but other things are not as important and they just need to be done maybe 90% or even 80%, and then you move on. So be careful about that. You can backlink tasks to a project deadline. If you have a project with a deadline, like a class that starts at a certain date, then put that deadline in your calendar first and then work backwards, reverse engineer, fill in the tasks on your calendar that lead up to the end of that project. So then you're going to know when you have to start the project in order to complete the tasks in time. I have not used this, but there are some people who use Gantt project software, but there's so many project management softwares out there. But they provide a visual way of seeing and linking tasks within a project. And you can assign time to each task and connect the tasks together to figure out how long the whole thing's going to take. There's mind maps. There's Asana, there's Trello, there's other project management softwares out there that might be able to really help you. So whatever you're doing, whatever you're planning, keep in mind Murphy's Law, right? Something is probably going to go wrong. No week is complete without something going wrong. So plan for it. Allow time in your week for tasks to take longer, phone calls to take longer, emergencies to crop up. You're going to be happier planning for breathing space. And when you're feeling overwhelmed, you're feeling that anxiety creeping up, action alleviates anxiety. So pick one high priority task on your to-do list and do it. Do it today. Okay. When you listen to this, nothing relieves stress better than getting up off your butt and taking action. Right. So don't fall into the trap of picking a low priority task just because it looks easy. Do the things that matter. Right. Do those things first. And don't try to do all these tips at once. Pick one or two that feels like it's going to work well for you. And then maybe take a month and start to make it a habit. And then pick another one and another one until you feel like that overwhelm and that anxiety is going down. And soon you will be dealing with things like a pro, right? So I hope this has been helpful. Whatever you would like to see more training on, if you could let me know, that would be great, because I will create training that's in demand. Now, be sure you are on my email list, because I always give you reminders of things coming up. I have a free workshop coming up, and there's different things going on. So always, make sure, if you're not on my email list, make sure you email me at cindy@cindybakercoaching.com and just say, I'd like to be added to your list. And I will do that. So I hope you have a great day, and I hope you are super productive. I'll see you next time.